Today's meetup is going to be a special treat, and because we have a special guest on. I've been looking forward to this moment for a long time. We've been doing this meetup now for a few years, and this is the first time we're having David on. David Niggle is the founder of the multi-million-dollar global coaching company Life Is Now Inc. and host of the Business Daily ranked podcast, The Successful Mind. And if you've not checked out that podcast, you need to, because it's a lot of great nuggets. A lot of great nuggets that you're going to be getting tonight. You're going to be getting on a daily basis on that podcast. And David's quest is to teach people to think successfully so that they can experience personal freedom. Being in the coaching and mentorship industry for more than 20 years, David has worked alongside other well-known mentors like Bob Proctor and Tony Robbins, and his clients include many well-known people, including New York Times #1 best-selling author Jen Sincero. David has also helped tens of thousands of students from all over the world, and is one of the architects of the personal growth industry. And through David's coaching and podcast, thousands of entrepreneurs and experts and self-employed professionals, like all of us represented on this meetup, have gained the confidence and found the right mindset needed to increase their revenues, to turn their endeavors into 7- and 8-figure ventures. So I know all of us want to do that, so we're going to be listening very carefully today. David is an avid student, and his core vision is to also bring expanded awareness and higher consciousness to as many people as possible, and to find greater ways of helping leaders make a bigger impact so that they can lead their greatest possible lives and serve the greatest number of people. I'm sure we all want to do that. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Mr. David Niggle and let him drop some gems on us. Thank you and welcome, David.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me. It is a pleasure and honor to be here. And my intention is to literally give you enough in the next 30 to 45 minutes to impact your life, especially financially, in some way that would actually be a market benefit. So I want to explain just a couple of really quick things because of the constraints of time. Let me tell you how I got involved in this. In 1993, I was like 26 years old at the time. I was a high school dropout. I was married. I had 2 children, and the only skills that I had were to drive a truck and a forklift. I was working my butt off, and there was nothing that I was doing was helping us get out of the situation that we were in. The first economic problem that I had was that in the late 80s, I actually got a job selling life insurance for Metropolitan Life. And it was going okay for a couple of years. And then we ran into the savings and loan crisis. And because I didn't understand how to navigate through an economic downturn of any kind, I didn't understand how to navigate through an economic upturn either, just to point that out. When that happened, the first thing that everybody was doing was getting rid of like life insurance policies. Like people were just, throwing stuff overboard just to be able to maintain their life. And that caused me to go bankrupt, end up on food stamps. We had to leave our apartment in the middle of the night because we couldn't afford to stay there anymore. We had to move to a pretty nasty neighborhood. We were living next door to a drug dealer that used to beat his wife. And I ended up on a forklift because I had no other options. And I took total responsibility for that. That was my problem. I was the one that chose not to get an education. But for 2 years, I worked every day. Not only was I working my job, but I was trying to figure out, how do I turn this around financially? And the reason for that was because I thought, okay, I understand how I got into this problem. How do I get out? Well, I have to get an education. The problem was I was working 6.5 days a week, and I was not making enough money in those 6.5 days to be able to go back to school, nor did I have the time. So I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, right? There's no internet back then. You had to literally go to a school building to further your education. So I'm trying to figure out, how can I earn money on the side? Anything. And there was just like no hope in what I was doing. I couldn't find anything that seemed to work. So after about 2 years, one night I found myself in just terrible distress. And this is a really long story, so I'm just going to encapsulate it make it very short. I decided to change something in my attitude. I had one of those nights where it was just like totally emotionally broken down, and a voice in my head said, change your attitude. So I'm like, I don't have anything else to change. I'll give that a try. In 30 days, my income tripled. I went from 20,000 a year to 62,000. And I was shocked. I mean, literally in shock. I could not figure out how changing my attitude had absolutely anything to do with my income. Made no sense to me at all. And it intrigued me because everything that I was taught about money seemed not to play a role. It was almost like I was playing by a different set of rules here that I was not taught about, nor did anybody in my family or anybody that I knew about it. If I asked them, how is this possible? They would say, well, David, you just got lucky. Now, don't make the same mistake again and screw yourself up. Keep doing what you're doing. Work all the overtime that you can. Like that was the advice that I got. But I knew that there was something else that I did. This wasn't luck. I did something, and I wanted to figure out what it was. So I started reading every book I could get my hands on. I turned my car into a library, and for 7 years, I studied. I used to have to drive to work. It was 100 miles one way to work. So I had 100 miles to work, 100 miles home. For 7 years, I just studied in that car. And I listened to everything I could get my hands on, went to every seminar that I could possibly go to. And slowly but surely, I figured out what it was that I did. And I started applying it not only to my other areas of my life, because I went from driving a forklift to upper management of a company with no further education. I was in charge of expanding that company across the country. And then I decided to step out at that moment and start my own coaching and consulting business. And I've been doing that now for 24 years. The key that I did not know was, number one, I didn't know what was controlling my income to begin with. That was a big factor. I had no idea what was controlling it. The other thing was I didn't know how to recognize opportunity when it showed up. Now, shortly after 2001, we started experiencing some financial trouble here in the United States. And I was working with a gentleman who was in real estate. And this guy was doing land deals, and he couldn't get out of his own way. He was really struggling. And I was showing him how to change how he was thinking about what he was doing. And I explained to him a very fundamental principle, because he was stuck basically on the same thing that I was stuck on. Why was this not working? And that's why he came to me. He's like, I don't understand why what I'm doing isn't working. And I said, why isn't it working? He said, because people aren't buying land. I said, no, just the people that you think aren't buying land. Somebody's buying land. Somebody's always buying. And that is one of the fundamentals to understand about. It doesn't matter what the economy is doing, somebody is always buying. And I work with a lot of business people, and one of the things that we teach them is people buy based on their internal value system. If a person was raised with the idea of all the fundamental principles that they learned in life are basically about survival, that's middle class, that's working class, that's blue collar folks, even professional class people, everything is about survival for them. So when things get tight, or if something starts to go wrong, they start to look for the best financial deals that they can find, like coupons and things that are on sale. They do this normally through their regular life also, but when things get hard, they look even more so. But not everybody does that, right? There's a completely different group of people that they have a different value system. Their value is in the product or service that they're buying, or whatever it is that they're investing in. They're not working for survival. They're working for advancement. And this is what I was explaining to this gentleman. And he went from being broke to doing 9-figure land deals, because at the time, the Chinese were buying up huge plots of land in the early 2000s. And I showed him how to do deals with them so that he could get the results that he was looking for. So he went from broke to 9-figure land deals in the matter of a couple of months, where prior to that, he thought nobody was buying, because that's what the appearance of things looked like. This comes down to something that's very interesting that I figured out over a long period of time. It's something called a financial set point. I am going to bring up my pad share my screen with you here. And I want to show you something that I think that you'll find. Let's see here. This will. No, let's see later. Do you have to okay me to allow me to do my
do we have David as a co-host? I think we should.
It's not
Yeah,
allowing.
Davis, he should be a co-host.
Let me try again here.
Try it again.
Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is what we call a financial set point. Now, there's three separate stories that people are raised with. We call it a wealth story, a need story, and a poverty story. Let's start off with a need story here. 1 second. So here's what I want you to think about. How much money do you need every month in order to pay your bills flush every month? Not pay everything off, not pay off all your debt, but what are your monthly bills? Think about that in your mind, write it down so that you see the number in front of you. What's fascinating about this is that most of us grow up with the idea, we actually hear this word, we hear the word need. When we ask for things when we're kids, we'll hear, you don't need that, or that's too much, or we don't need that. Only buy what you need, or don't spend more than you need. And we hear this word in place of the actual dollar amount that it would take in order for us to spend money to purchase things that we want. So it gets installed in our subconscious mind as literally a story that determines how much money we make and how we live our lives. Now, what's fascinating about this is you could take everybody that lives in the same neighborhood, and the idea of this need will vary slightly based on perception, what a person thinks is what they need in their life. But what's fascinating about it is that their income will vary according to this word, need. It will not vary according to the goal that they set for themselves. It's almost like that idea in their mind is way outside of something that they can reach for themselves. The average person, if you say, let's set a goal for you to become wealthy, whatever wealthy means to the person, we say, okay, set a number for yourself that you want to reach. And they start working toward that goal. Eventually, usually what happens is they hit some point before they hit the goal and they start coming back down again. Now, they'll be able to justify this all the time. People stop buying, deals went bad, we're in a recession, whatever it is. Something is they believe something outside of themselves is causing that dollar amount to come back down. And before you know it, they end up right back with what it is that they need. It's almost like they're possessed by some kind of outside power or energy that causes them to go up and come back down and up and come back down. And most people, like if you go inside sales teams, you see this is rampant. You'll have a small percentage of people that are rock stars in a sales team, and the rest of them go through this cycle constantly up and down and up and down their entire career. Here's something else that's interesting. Let's say something happens to this person here who's making enough money to meet their needs. And all of a sudden their income drops for whatever reason, and they start going down. When they first start going down, they're experiencing fear. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? How do I make more money? There's a recession going on. People aren't buying, whatever it might be, right? They start focusing on the fact that they're not making the amount of money that they need. And they start going down towards this thing I call a poverty story. Now, the wealth story and the poverty story are not actual real places. These are psychological markers inside the mind of every human being. Okay? Meaning that what I think is wealth and what you think is wealth might be two different things, but we have an idea of what that is in our mind. And it's the same thing with poverty. Interestingly enough, poverty does not mean the same thing to everybody. Some people are flat out homeless living under a bridge, and that's poverty to them. Other people, poverty is just not being able to pay their monthly bills on time or some variation of that. And as they begin to move down towards this line of what they actually think poverty is, fear changes to urgency. Now, I want to ask you a question. Have any of you had an experience where your income was going down, and at the last minute before things got really bad, all of a sudden money started showing up? Whether it was an unexpected check, an unexpected tax refund, a Christmas card from grandma, you found money in a coat. When I travel around the United States, most people I run into have experienced this to some degree or another. They always seem to get what they need when they need it. Not what they want, but just what they need to get by. And if you look at the average individual all over the United States, they just make it all the time. Well, I became fascinated with this. How is it that so many people could just make it? They're having all kinds of problems, but they're always able to come up with just enough solution to get by. And they generally don't go way below this unless there's mental illness or drugs involved. Okay, so I'm talking about the average healthy individual got themselves into a bad situation, and they're approaching this line in their mind that they think is poverty. Now, what is it that's associated with this wealth story and with this poverty story that's in common that cause people to stay almost the entire time in their life right around this need story? The idea is this, and I want you to really give this some consideration. What are the two things that happen if you go above this line and you go below this line that you don't want to experience? What it is this. If we go above this line, in other words, if we actually really become wealthy, and we've never become wealthy before, the people that raised us, the people that love us, the people that gave us the story to begin with will now see us with wealth. And if you were raised in any kind of family that judged wealth, like I was, it's a funny thing. It's kind of like a catch-22. You need to have money, but it's also a necessary evil. Like money is the root of all evil. Wealthy people are crooked. You can't trust them. There's this duality that we learn. And the idea is that we pick it up as human beings. And there's something inside of us that says, don't go too high, because we'll be rejected by the people that are around us that actually care about us. I have done for 24 years live seminars with thousands of people in the room, and I'll ask them a question. I'll say, listen, let's say you go home, you get all your friends and family together for a dinner party. In the middle of the dinner party, you stand up, you ding your glass, and you say, I want to make an announcement. I have decided that I'm going to become unbelievably wealthy. And you'll hear the whole audience just crack up. Like, I didn't tell a joke. Why is it that they're laughing? Because they understand what the responses would be from the people that they grew up around. They know exactly what the criticisms would be around that. And they don't want to experience it. Well, they don't want to experience it in the poverty either. So subconsciously, what happens is that if we start to get too close to this wealth line, something will happen in our life, and we'll look at it and we'll go, it's that thing, but it brings us right back down to what we need. And if we start to run out of money before we get to this line, the same thing will happen. It'll bring us back up to what we need. This is called a financial set point. I have never met a human being that doesn't have one. Even very wealthy people have one. They're just different. The key is to understand where yours is so that you can break through it. Making a lot of money is one of the easiest things that you'll ever do. And the thing about it that blows most people's mind when they start making money is that the more you make, the easier it is. The more you make, the easier it is. If you are working and you're finding that making a lot of money is hard, it's probably because you were taught to work hard. And now you supersede this thing in your mind in a way where you make everything that you do difficult. I'll tell you a quick story. I got to a point in my business where I had a goal. I wanted to take my business and I was doing about 50,000 a year. This is the first year that I started. I wanted to make 50,000 a month. And I was working with a guy who was my mentor, and I told him, I said, here's my goal. My goal for the next month is to turn my annual income into a monthly income. And he said to me, David, it's easier to make 50,000 a month than it is to make 50,000 a year. And I laughed because I thought he was just teasing me. I thought he was just joking with me, right? but I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And I set off and I started heading towards this goal. 30 days later, I wasn't any close to the goal than I was when I started. So I got back on the phone with him. He said, how did you do? I said, I'm kind of embarrassed to say I didn't do well at all. I didn't make no headway at all. And he said the same thing to me again. He said, David, it's easier to make 50,000 a month than it is 50,000 a year. And I laughed, but I also got a little tweaked because I was like, this wasn't a joking matter to me. What I didn't realize was that he wasn't joking with me. He was very serious. He was trying to get me to understand that the reason I wasn't making $50,000 a month was because I was approaching it from the paradigm that I had in my mind that earning a lot of money was hard. And it took me till the third month to get it, to realize it. And I was like, well, he seriously means that it's easier to do this. And I'm making it hard. I looked at, like, mathematically, what would be the easiest way for me to do this? And in my business at the time, it would be one person and you charge them $50,000. Now, I didn't think I could do that at the time, but regardless, that would have been the easiest way for me to do it. And mathematically, I was working it out. I need hundreds of people, would sell this much product, and I would get to 50,000. And there was no way that I would ever get there at the place that I was in my business. But I was looking at it as if it was difficult. So I changed the math problem. And I said, what does this need to look like in order for me to make this easy? The next month, the third month, I made 50,000 in 2 weeks. And when I understood that principle, I never went back. Right after that, I took it up over $1 million, and it's always gone up since then, because it's easier to make. The more money you want, the easier it is to make. You can't make more money or become more successful without leverage to begin with. But then you run into problems like we have now, where there's a lot of people having real trouble with, their mind is filled with everything that's going on in the news and all the different podcasts that are talking about the financial crisis and the war, and you just, like, every negative thing that you could possibly imagine. And their mind is filled with the idea that all of these things are preventing them from making the amount of money that they want to make, or doing the deals that they want to make, or whatever, whatever kind of prosperity idea that you're actually going after. And nothing could be further from the truth, right? So we all know that when we end up in a recession, we're talking about, it's part of an economic cycle, right? There's a recession every few years. It's part of what we need to maintain the balance in our economy. But not everybody has to go broke during a recession. Not everybody has to have a hard time. You just have to adjust the way you think, and to the point where we're the people that value purchasing money during this time. How do they value that? And what is it that they're actually doing? So I'm not saying that somebody may not have to go after different investors or go to different clients or different people that are purchasing, or make some adjustment. You very well may have to do that. However, you have to understand that there are so many people that make money in a down cycle. It's ridiculous. And the reason that they make money is because they don't think about it as something that they're losing or something to fear. They understand that it's opportunity. There is always opportunity. There's always opportunity for whatever it is that you are focused on. That's what I learned when I was on the forklift. The problem was this: when I was on that forklift, there was an opportunity that had been around me for 2 years that it would instantaneously allow me to triple my income. But I saw it as something that I didn't want, not as something that had an opportunity to get me out of the situation that I was in. And that was because I had such a bad attitude. Right now, I don't have a bad attitude anymore, but I work with business people all over the world, and I can tell you that their attitude is generally pretty uplifting, but they are just as susceptible to getting stuck in a paradigm that what they want or what they need is hard or difficult or not here every time something changes. And it's absolutely not true. If you have a need or a desire for anything, whatever it is that you need or desire has to be here. It's the opposite side of the same thing. Everything in the universe operates by a law of polarity, which says that everything has an opposite and it's equal and opposite. You can't have anything that's just one-sided. If I have a need for money, that money has to be here. If I have a need for money, the opportunity for that money has to be here. If I have a need for sales, the people for those sales has to be here. That's the truth. If you think about what all the economic people are constantly manipulating everybody to do, then you'll think to yourself, there's nothing that I can actually do about this. But it's 100% not accurate. It's not accurate at all. And we take people every day, absolutely every day, with that mindset and show them exactly where the opportunity is, help them figure out where that opportunity is so that they can change it, because it's not difficult to change. The only thing that you have to think about is, let me change that. The most difficult part about it is letting go of your belief that it's hard. If you're having trouble, you have to ask yourself, why am I so attached to what's the reason for that? And psychologically, we know that it's because most people's identities are tied to working hard and overcoming problems, and that's how they see themselves as a good person. Think about if what I'm telling you is absolutely true, that making a lot of money is the easiest thing you will ever do. How will other people see you in the light of that? Right? Most people, when they hear it, they go, no, there's something wrong about that. There's something, that can't be true. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. That's not true at all. It is that easy, but people don't believe it because most people are not taught that in life. Schools don't teach people how to earn money. Schools teach people how to go to work for somebody else. It's a totally different value system. You have to get with somebody that understands money to learn how to earn money. And you have to understand leverage, and you have to understand values, and you have to understand how to recognize opportunity to be able to do it. But it doesn't have to take you long. It just needs to take a little bit of a shift in your thinking to be able to see what you're not currently seeing. So the problem is this, I'll just say it one more time. Whatever the perception is that's grabbing your mind and telling you that something's difficult, you've got to let that go and realize the opposite is also true. That the way to do whatever it is that you need to do is here, and it's as close to you as your breath. For instance, so this is a pen. This pen has a left side and a right side. It can't have one without the other. That's an impossibility. And it can't have one without the other without being attached in the middle. They're both part of the same thing. They're both part of the whole. When you have, now I want you to think about this. When you say, I don't have money, you also have money. You just don't see it. Why don't you see it? Because you've been programmed not to see it. You've been programmed to focus on the problem. But the opportunity for you to bring the money in has to be there at the exact same time. It has to be there. That is an absolute universal law. And all that requires is that you change your perception and be willing to let go of ideas that you might be holding on to that are not serving you, and really adopt some ideas that would actually help you out. So with that, I'll turn it over and I'll take questions, because I think I might be able to make a little bit more progress with some questions.
Thank you so much, David. That was a great start. Certainly for those of us that have dived headfirst into personal development and have had to change some existing beliefs and mindsets and break down identities from the past that were not serving us. We can relate to a lot of the things that you're saying. But I would start with a question, and I think we already having some questions come into the chat. A lot of our community members, a lot of our investors, a lot of the people in our immediate communities are like professionals that are either employed or self-employed or whatnot. And they sometimes feel like, well, it's nice that you tell me all these things about my mindset, staying in my way, but there's only a finite amount of hours in a day for me to explore, the work that I do. And, I can't work 48 hours in a day. So and I only get paid a certain amount per hour. Can you please speak to that person who is like saying, why, you're telling me there's opportunities to make more, but I just can't see it. What is your response to that person?
Okay, this is a really great question. You're right. Everybody has the same 24 hours. And this is a real issue. Whenever you become aware that you want to make a significant change in your life, you also have to take into consider how old you are and what it is that you're changing, right? So I was 26, 27 when I started changing. I had to change 26, 27 years of people telling me the way the world was this way, and literally had to go through all of those things over a period of time and find out what was the truth versus what I was told. And business and money was just part of that realization. I did it. I looked for, where is the time where I can actually learn this, right? Now, when I did it, if I was to do it today and have some knowledge that this information was out there, I don't think it would have taken me 7 years. But in the 90s, this wasn't this information was not everywhere, right? I don't even know if there was a self-help section of a bookstore back then. So I would go to libraries, right? And I would look up biographies, and I would get everything that I possibly could on tape, because I had the time in the car to be able to do it. You have to be willing to invest the time that's going to take to turn your thinking around so that you can learn something. But on a very basic level, a person can start changing it rapidly if they look for opportunities that will allow them to do the one thing that makes money come to them, and that's sell. Okay. Sales is the only thing in the world that moves money. That's it, because that's the purpose of money, right? Money is a tool that was created about an idea so that we can actually do two very specific things. One, make our life much easier. And the other thing is to be able to trade something for goods and services that we don't have the time to be able to do everything ourselves anymore. So if I want to learn something, I have to get very specific about it. I would also recommend that a person get a coach as fast as they possibly can, because if they find a coach that already has the results that they want, and that's a key, the whole key there is that person will point them to every single thing that they have to do, and they don't have to fumble around in the dark to try to find it like I did. I didn't know where to look. And if you don't know where to look, that is a problem, because you're operating in ignorance. So find someone that can give you advice as to what to start focusing on and what to start changing first, and you'll be able to change it much quicker.
Wow, that was a great response. I'm gonna ask the question that Brian Cobb asked for everyone, and I think Mr. Kano is next. I think he wants to ask a question, but Brian Cobb asked, David, do you think the reason why the average person never makes it to the wealth story is due to complacency?
Yeah, I think it's due to complacency, but I think that complacency is learned, right? I don't think it's in the human spirit to be complacent. Something happened in that person's life where this was the attitude toward life that they developed, and they've just become complacent. And it can be I've seen so many different reasons why this is. They don't have support. They have people around them that rip them down every time they have an idea that they want to do something. And then they start to develop the belief that they can't do it. But see, that's just a perception also. That's just a belief. If that person was to change the information that was going in their mind, I think the complacency would change, because I've watched it change with people. I really have, and pretty significantly, I would say. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, that is a big problem. And the other thing is that you can't want it bad enough for somebody. A person has to want it themselves. But if a person wants it, they will always attract to them what it is that they need to get there.
Absolutely. Mr. Kano, please go ahead and ask your question. Let's try to keep all the questions very brief so that we can get to as many questions as possible. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Great job, my friend, with the story. Your life story is very compelling. You know, it's interesting. When I was growing up, we were told, I grew up in this story, that a fool of 40 is a fool forever. And more recently, we've come to realize that age 26, it's interesting you would use the age of 26. Age 26 is the magic age when people either get it or they don't. That's something that we're finding out, interestingly enough. You talked about a few things that I thought were interesting. One of the things that's been consistent in this group meet is the use of the word mindset. Last month, Julius and his team, in talking about 2023 being the best year for everybody if you do it right, started with your mindset. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't appropriate enough credence to. Your mindset is everything.
That's everything. I agree.
Okay. You could not be more correct. It's easier to make $50,000 a month than to make $50,000 a year. You've just got to understand how to do it and how to appropriate your mindset to accomplish those things. That's, the point you made. That is very, very true. People have got to understand how to use leverage. They've got to understand how to take advantage of opportunities, be opportunistic in their minds, in the way they approach things and so on. And it starts with the mindset. The other thing is, I would modify the concept of selling. I am a believer, and we found this to work. It's really about solving. We are of the school that the more you solve, the more you sell.
Yep.
The more you sell, the less you sell. Truly, accomplishments are derived from solving, not selling. So I hope that that modification is taken in that context.
Absolutely.
And then the other piece is how you amplify your results, my friends. A couple of series ago, I mentioned a book, Who, Not How, by Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan has, he is the champion of amplifying results by doing what you do best, focusing on that, and outsourcing everything else to other people who do those things well. Because that way you 10x and 100x your own results. So hopefully, this is additive to the discussions. And thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you so much for those comments. Jimmy?
Hi, Dan. David, excuse me. Nice to meet you. I wanted to comment on one thing too. For me, one of my personal struggles was it wasn't the fear of failure that actually broke me down when I hit my low points in my life where I was at. It was the fear of success. When I was on track and I was about to hit it, I realized I hit a fear factor of what am I going to do after I make it? So I got self-destructive and I crushed some of those potential successes down. For whatever reason, and I came to realize, I thought I didn't deserve it. I didn't think I was worthy of it. It took a lot of falling down, I guess I'll call it, for me to finally realize what was going inside my head mentally. I had the support system there, but for some reason, I allowed myself to believe that they didn't support me in the way I thought that I needed to be when they actually were. And whenever I started hitting that high point and I started hitting that success point again, I thought, okay, this is too good to be true. I'm gonna go and self-destruct right now before it becomes worse.
Yeah.
And it took me a lot of times to fall down, like I said, and then I finally realized it was all in the fact that I've let indirect influences affect those outcomes for me. It wasn't the fact that people told me I couldn't make it. It was hearing the nuances of what was going on around us, maybe economically, maybe in the community, and I let that get to me without realizing it. When I finally got my head right in that sense, I started seeing things from a much different perspective, and it helped me get back on track. So I stopped looking at trying to make money in terms of giving a number of 50 grand a month. And no disrespect to anybody, but for me, I looked at it as I'm looking to make not just money, but also solve people's problems. Financially speaking, for my financial goal is for me to make what I like to call, and I'll put it politely, the FU money. And that FU money can have any value to it that anybody wants to put. But the point is to consistently have a revenue generated to me every single month where I don't care what my bills are. I'm not going to care if I go on vacation tomorrow. I don't care if I want to buy a new house. It doesn't care what I want to do expense wise. My revenue stream will always supersede what I want as far as expense goes. And that's where I'm aiming towards. And it's giving me a lot better fulfillment too. And also in terms of helping people out with the situation. When I first introduced myself to Julius. So I wanted to share that part too. So some people are afraid of failure, but other people are afraid of success.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate those comments, Jimmy. And I think a lot of your comments are like really examples of exactly what David mentioned earlier about changing your mindset to really get to the next level. David, I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
If someone was to, if for example, that person that you told to get a coach earlier was to say, wait, listen, okay, besides the coach, what other things can I do to start to work towards, changing that mindset now? What other resources can you tell me that I could start exploring to educate myself to, start to get to that next level? How would you answer that question, sir?
The first thing is to pay attention to what you desire. What is the reason that you want to change? What is the thing that you want? You need to start off with being as clear as you possibly can about what that is and keep making it clearer as you go. Because every time you run into any, like what this gentleman was talking about, he had a self-worth issue, come kind of slam him down. If you don't understand the reason that you want something so that you can overcome it, it's very easy for that to happen. Let me show you something really quick here. If I can just bring this back up. Because I thought it made a great point. And so you're making a great point also. So this is a diagram that we call a core wound diagram. And the idea behind it is that everybody is raised with kind of some semblance of a core wound to begin with. Usually it's not enough, meaning that a person will believe someplace deep in their subconscious that they don't deserve it enough. If when they're building themselves out to the success that they want, if they don't change this problem, then what happens is that at some point it brings them right back down, right? It's like water seeks its own level type of an idea. If you don't think you deserve the success that you want, it will find a way in and it will tear you down. It usually speaks to you through shame and guilt. And the thing that keeps it alive are secrets. So anybody that has a core wound will find that they're carrying secrets about themselves, their family, things that happen to them, things that happen to other people, things that they know about that they have shame attached to that they don't know what to do with. And it exacerbates the idea of their core wound, which causes them to have a core fear, which usually is they don't want people to leave them. But it shows up in patterns of behavior that just keep continuing to repeat themselves. So they end up with the same problem over and over and over again. And the problem is that they actually try to change the problem at this level, and they don't realize the problem needs to change at the not enough level. They actually have to realize that they are enough, right? They're absolutely enough. However they want to look at that, whether that's a divine idea or a personal idea, or an idea that they pick up that they're interpreting from their parents, they're absolutely enough. That has to keep the same level as the progress that they're making so that they don't sabotage themselves.
That's powerful. Yeah, so I mean, are there any other questions, or do you guys just want me to keep monopolizing the questions?
No, Dr. I got a question for Mr. David.
Go for it.
Mr. David, first off, thank you for taking the time out to drop these gems on us. Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned like letting go of things that aren't serving you to be able to see opportunities. What were some of the opportunities in the early 90s that you missed? And what are some opportunities going forward in this potential downturn that you're trying to take advantage of?
Well, the opportunity that I couldn't see for 2 years was an opportunity to go to work for another company. But the reason that I didn't see the opportunity was because I was judging the person that worked there. There was a guy that came he came twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, and his job, he drove what they call an on-site fuel delivery truck. So he would come on to our property. We were a food distributor, and he would fill the trucks and the refrigerated trailers with diesel fuel twice a week. So the drivers didn't have to go out and fill them at the gas station type of a thing. And I mean, there's a lot of, the guy always smelled like diesel fuel. He was out in the weather all the time. I had a real attitude of a jerk at that time in my life, and I just judged him. And my self-esteem was so low. I kept trying to find ways to make what I was doing better than what he was doing, and not being able to see this opportunity that was right in front of me. When I changed my attitude, I changed the way that I was behaving towards this person, because I changed three things. I recognized that I had three areas that I needed to work on. One was treating everybody with total respect. I was not doing that because I didn't know how to treat myself with respect. The other one was to act like I love what I did and do every job to the best of my ability. And when I did that, within a few days, I saw this man as something I didn't see before. And that's when the opportunity, then I became aware of the opportunity, because I actually stopped judging him. Now, today, the idea would be to stop looking at what you don't have and stop thinking about what you don't think that you can do. There's always reasons why you can't, you don't, you won't, there's a problem. You have to focus on the fact that it's already here. And when you focus on the fact that it's already here and you practice gratitude, gratitude sets up an energetic expectation for the thing you want before it gets here. And you will be led to it just like that. But you have to practice it. In other words, here's the thing that I want. Here's the amount of money that I want to make. Here's an opportunity that I would like to have. I am going to be 100% grateful for that right now, because I know that once I make a decision, that thing starts moving toward me. So that's the way to get around a blind spot today, so to speak.
Julius, I do have a comment. This is really powerful what you just said, David, because what I've learned from listening to you and from coaching under you is a lot of times we miss the opportunities that are out there because we're waiting for an opportunity to be served on us on some kind of a platter, or for something to hit us on the side of the head and said, there's an opportunity here for you. Yeah. So are there some other practices that I know you talked about gratitude and the whole judgment piece, which I think is probably one of the biggest things that held me back personally, being very judgmental. So I don't know if you could go a little bit deeper on that, so that gives people more clarity to have that open more perspective to be able to see some of the opportunities that are coming in this climate right now.
Yeah, so when a person is in judgment, what they end up actually doing is they move into just pure entitlement. That's where I was in my life. Like, I walked around as if the world owed me something, and as if people owed me something. And that's what I see with most individuals when they're in judgment. The second they go into judgment, they go into victimization and entitlement. They become a victim, and they think other people in the world and whatever owes them something. The real key, the first key to breaking through this for the average individual, is that they have to get the idea in their mind that they're not a victim. They have to get rid of that idea, because I've never seen anybody become really successful holding the idea that they're a victim at the same time. And I know that our world pushes that idea on a lot of people. I think it's a sin from the pit of hell, honestly, because I don't think anybody's a victim. Now, I do think people are victimized, but that doesn't mean that you're a victim. And it doesn't mean that you can't turn your life around based on things that happen. There's awful things that happen to people, no question about it. But if you see yourself as a victim, you give your power away to other people and other things that have happened in your life, and you don't see how you can turn it around. So like you said in your question, you're waiting for somebody else to hand you something. And that's not going to never happens. It's just not going to happen. So the idea is to forgive, take your power back, and you make something happen based on the idea that you're an all-powerful human being, and you have the power and the ability to do anything that you want in this lifetime. I believe that, if you look at any other form of life on this planet, it's interesting. It doesn't doubt what it is, and it doesn't doubt why it's here. But human beings with our amazing intellect, for some reason, doubt it all the time. And I think that's because of the stories that we've heard about ourselves for thousands of years that just are simply not true. Inside of every living thing is something that gives it direction in life. And in human beings, it's desire. Desire points the direction for your life. You have to learn to follow that desire and listen to it. And it will guide you to unbelievable success and happiness in your life if you follow it. But you have to find it inside of yourself first. And sometimes it can be difficult for somebody depending on how hard their life was, but it's still there. You can't kill it because you can't kill God.
Yeah, powerful. Are there any other questions? We have about 5 minutes left with David. I want to be respectful of his time. Are there any other questions or comments? We've had some fantastic comments from Angie, from Jimmy, some great questions from Leslie, from Miles. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Please go ahead, Angela.
Hi. I'm listening in the background. This is my first time on the call. So my husband and I, we have a physical therapy clinic in Maryland, and
Awesome.
we're looking at some new opportunities in the new year. And we've been in operation since 2011. My question is this. Just listening to you, doesn't seem like we can really be hindered by, or should be hindered by, the capacity in which we already operate, right? So I know physical therapy. I know how to run a physical therapy clinic, right?
Yeah.
But I'm eager and have always been eager to know real estate, to and not just real estate, but always seeking other opportunities. So my mind and my spirit is already like 10 years ahead of me, right? And I think my body is trying to catch up, but I'm just wondering, so this is all very exciting to me. I'm just wondering, okay, so what's next after the call like this, right? So are you the coach we need to get? Is that sort of the point here, or like,
No.
how do we answer this question? Or I think the mindset is already there for me. I mean, I'm already an entrepreneur. I'm always constantly seeking opportunity, but how do I then take the next step? That's what I want to know.
So so you're 100% clear on what you want? Do I have that? Do I understand that correctly?
I am 100% clear that I want something else.
Okay, but you don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
Then that's the next step.
Okay.
That is the next step. You have to get clear on what that is. You have to get clear. And we work with people that have established businesses. We don't work with people that don't have businesses. So we can help somebody with a business, but the answer to your question is to get really clear on what it is that you want.
Okay.
Right? And give yourself permission to want whatever it is.
Okay, well, I can say this. I want to become a philanthropist. So I want to have enough money that I can solve problems that I see.
Okay.
And so how and where I build that is what I'm looking for. Very interested in real estate, but I know that that's not the only way to make money or to build wealth. But so the key tenet is that I want to build wealth and I want to give that wealth away.
Okay.
So
well, one of the fastest ways to do something like that is to find a group of people that all want the same thing, where you can combine the efforts of others and their money in order to invest so that you can rapidly grow the wealth to be able to do something like that.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just create a job for yourself.
Right. So I think like this. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. And I can tell you that XSITE Capital is a great example of that. There's 3 young brothers who discovered that there was an opportunity to come together and bring other folks together, pool all our resources and start creating wealth together. And so now, $168 million of real estate acquired later, and over 200 investors or co-property owners on this, all of this deals together. And we have just discovered that the impossible is possible. Because if you asked me 3 years ago that this was going to be the reality, I'll tell you were smoking crack. But something changed inside of us, when we realized that if we just said, we can do it, and started to take that, the journey of 1,000 steps, starts with that first, of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, right? And we just started to take that step one after the other. And even when no one cared, when people thought we were a little crazy, when people thought we were going outside of our comfort zone, what's an orthopedic surgeon and a CRNA and a cybersecurity consultant doing to do real estate? We still kept sharing the gospel of real estate with as many people as would care to listen. And initially, maybe 10, maybe 15 people were crazy enough to go on the journey with us. Now we got hundreds of people going on the journey with us, and soon it will be thousands. And so what I challenge you to do is find that thing that keeps you going, like it makes you so passionate that you just want to share it with as many people as possible. Because guess what? The people, your clan, they are right out there and they're willing to go on that journey with you. So we are a testament to it, and we are certainly more than willing to share as much resources as we can, as you are willing to absorb with you to get there. But we're really glad that you're here today. And thank you so much, David, for bringing that out.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it's 7:01. I want to be very respectful of your time, David. And I know somebody asked one more question. I'm not sure if you're able to take it, but
yeah, I'll take it.
okay, wonderful. I think somebody was asked, Frendika was saying, what would you say was the greatest challenge in becoming fulfilled in what you do, no matter where you are in life? And how did that fulfillment create wealth for you?
My greatest challenge was getting my personal relationships straight. I did not grow up in a household that thrived on personal relationships and knowing how to have them and who to choose in my life. And that was probably the hardest thing that I ever did, was to relearn how to treat myself and how to find people that wanted as much for me as I wanted for them in personal relationships. That was the biggest thing, without question. Without question.
Thank you so much, David. And with that, I want to be respectful. Thank you so much, David. We really appreciate you. How can we find you? And can you please just tell everybody if we want to learn more from you and really, gain more insights and wisdom from you, where can we find you? How can we continue to learn from you?
The best way to learn from us is to go to the Successful Mind podcast. It's absolutely free. They're both educational, and there's a lot of great tips in there for things people can do in their business. That's where I would start.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we certainly hope that you will be back soon again to continue to educate us. Thank you again for taking this opportunity. And for the rest of the folks, please feel free to stay. We're going to take the next couple of minutes to enjoy, but we just want to say thank you to you, David. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. You all have a great evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
So I see Christy. I'm so sorry. I just saw your hand up. Please feel free to ask your questions. I'm no David Nigel, but we as a group here may be able to answer or address your question.
Okay, so my question is this. I heard David mention earlier that he doesn't work with anyone that does not have an established business. With me, I have to be honest, in 2021, this was like a calling on my life for me to go get my real estate license. And because trust me, believe me, did not want to deal with anything with real estate. My mother have a lot of real estate and it could be a headache. So, letting that be an example, but it was just something that the Lord told me to do. Go get your real estate license. I procrastinated, and I finally got it. And he has been leading me in how to purchase property. Now, I do have an LLC in Virginia, but I don't have an operating business. And so my biggest question is, if you're only dealing with someone that has an established business and there are people that are looking to start their business, do not know the direction that they need to go in, they need a little help, some guidance. Are you willing to take them on and be a mentor to them and walk them through steps by steps in how to create that successful business? Because I'm looking to be more of a real estate investor. I'm looking to get more into like multifamily syndicated units, and I'm starting off small. And so I would like to know if I don't want to be discouraged. In other words, if that's something, if you're not working with someone that's not well established,
Yeah.
Could
So,
you lead me or guide me to the person that could, you know?
this is wonderful. Leslie, you want to take this? I know Leslie is like probably itching so hard to respond to that question. But thank you so much for your honesty, Christy. Go ahead, Leslie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I just wanted to say, I guess the reason why, because I've been part of David's program, the reason why he said that is because the stuff that he teaches you is stuff that you have to go apply on a daily basis on a business. And if you have like a business, the lady that spoke earlier that has a physical therapy business, where you're looking to expand, you're looking to grow, where you're stagnant,
That's Angela.
the principles that he teaches can really expand you. So I think he sees and give him credit, because there are other teachers out there that would take anybody and teach you the principles, even knowing that the stage of your growth, you're not going to be able to apply it at that point in time. But you are interested in real estate, and you're more than welcome to join the XSITE community. We provide a lot of free teaching to people that are looking to get into multifamily. And we're looking in the future to have a more structured mentorship program. But you're more than welcome to come on. We'll teach you, share our resources with you, teach you everything we know for free. And if you're serious, you want to take it to the next level, we'll be there to support you as well. So on that note, I'll pass it over to our CEO, Dr. Oni.
Absolutely. So, and just if I may add something to that, we are actually currently working on a course that would serve that exact need that you just mentioned. That is going to essentially go multifamily 101, and go through all the steps that you need to achieve some of those goals that you described. But certainly you're on the right platform. We started this platform because we also were in the same boat as you were at some point a couple of years ago. And we didn't really see content that spoke directly to us, that really explained things to us on a step-by-step basis. And so our goal and our mission is to educate as many people as we can and go on this journey with as many people as we can. And that's what we've been doing so far. So welcome to XSITE Capital. We look forward to growing with you and to contributing significantly to your growth.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that, gentlemen.
Thank you. Any other questions? That was a good one. That was some of the things that said probably went over. If you are not reading within the lines, but hopefully it did speak to a lot of hearts, and at least started you thinking a little bit about what some of those limiting beliefs may be for you. I remembered when we started XSITE Capital. I had a mindset, block where I was like, man, is anybody still going to take me seriously as an orthopedic surgeon if I'm out there, talking about real estate? And because as doctors in general, we have been kind of, conditioned to be relatively rigid and really constrained in our thinking, and to be heavily suspicious of anything outside of that box. So for those, and this is true for almost a lot of healthcare professionals, and certainly also through the truth for a lot of underrepresented minorities. So it's just one of those things that I had to essentially break a lot of those. I had to have all of those belief systems and change my mindset completely. And one of the things that really helped me in that process was reading as many books as I could about, fortifying my mindset, really working on meditations and for you, whatever it is, if it could be prayers, it could be just spending some time really thinking about what you want and how you want to get it. And then also learning about how to set a goal and then reverse engineer the goal. Like, okay, what do I need to be able to do today to get there in 12 months? And then put some numbers on it, put some steps onto it, and then start to calculate, what do I need to do in in the next half year? What do I need to do in 3 months? What do I need to do in the next 1 month? What do I need to do this week to get to the 1 month goal? And when you start to break it down to that kind of granularity, then you start to see some movements. So, but I really appreciate a lot of the comments and questions and the vulnerability that people that commented or asked questions expressed. So thank you. We have about 5 more minutes. I just want to give anyone who has any more comments. Mr. Kanu, that was some great comments earlier, and certainly some great adjuncts to the lessons that we learned. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah. And Ian Kanu, you came on video. Did you have some comments?
Yeah, I kind of came late, and I apologize for that. But I had
No
a question
worries.
about specifically regarding XSITE Capital.
Go for it.
So, do you guys invest in ground up developments, or do you strictly do, rent increasing oriented endeavors, things of that nature?
So what we do currently is that we buy value add multifamily properties, and this could be anything, usually anything from 100+ units and up is what we mostly specialize in, and we're mostly looking in the Southeast US, even though we just did our first acquisition in the Baltimore area in this past December. And specifically what that means is that we buy properties that are like that need some love, right? And we then do some significant renovations, add significant value to the tenants that are presently there. And usually we're buying with the rents significantly lower than what the market is. And then because of all the additive value that we've added to it, we're able to bring it essentially up to what the market value is. If the market rent, if the property is already at the market rent, then there's usually some other opportunities to increase value. Because ultimately what you try to increase is the net operating income, right? Net operating income is either decreasing your expenses, right? It's the difference between your expenses and your revenues. So if you're able to decrease your expenses, you increase your net operating income, which increases the value of the property. Or if you're able to increase the revenues on the property and keep your expenses the same, that still increases the net operating income. But the real holy grail is when you're able to decrease your expenses and also increase your revenues. Then that's another way to increase the value of the property exponentially. So that's what really XSITE Capital does for the most part. Soon we are looking at some potential development deals in the future, and we're exploring our options with that. But our core at this point has been multifamily value add deals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Julius, just for the, in the interest of disclosure, that's my youngest son.
Ah, that's fantastic. I was wondering with the last name. That's fantastic. Well, welcome, Ian. Welcome.
I have another, I'm sorry.
Yeah, please go for it. Please go for it.
This is Christy. So when you're saying that you are looking at other properties, multifamily properties of 100+ units within the southeast of the United States, and that can be from the DMV all the way to Georgia, and you're looking to invest, are you looking to also bring on investors, or is just going to be just you and your other 2 partners? Are you looking
So this is a team sport. That's the beautiful thing about it. We actually don't ever do this by ourselves. We don't want to do this by ourselves because the whole goal of starting this company in the first place was to grow the wealth of folks in our extended communities, right? So each one of these deals actually asks at least 40 to 80 people, on the property ownership group. That's how large they are. Because we are talking about any deal from $10 million to $50 million, typically. So for a $30 million deal, for example, we usually have to raise equity of about $10 million. $10 million is about, $250,000. But most people at this stage in our growth are actually bringing in more than $50,000, which is the minimum investment. And so typically, those raises involve a smaller group of people because so if we, for example, add 100 people bring in $100,000, then we've raised out $10 million. We go buy the property, and everybody that invested is part of that ownership group. And there's an LLC that owns every single property, and everybody investing essentially owns a portion of that LLC. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but this is my other question since you brought up the LLC part. So since I already have our LLC already established and I already have property in my LLC. So if you have an overarching LLC, so is there's like a tier level? So and the reason why I'm asking that question because of the amount of investors, the amount of cash, or amount of investment they're going to put in, financial investment they're going to put into this property, monetary investment. Will there be like tier levels? Like, hey, this certified can bring in this amount, this certified can bring in that amount, or you're trying to have it set to be even across the board?
Oh, so that's a great question. So, I mean, like, for example, XSITE Capital itself is an LLC, right? And what I think the question you're asking right now is the difference between a general partner and a limited partner. Anyone who is bringing the capital to the deal, just pure capital to the deal, saying, put my money to work for me, that is a passive investor or a limited partner. That's just it. Yeah, just put my money to work for me. Give me anything between 15 to 25% average annual returns. Of that, 6 to 8% could be cash flow. And that's just, they are limited partners. They typically own between 70 to 75, maybe 80% of the deal, right? Those of us that put the deal together, that could be XSITE Capital, that could be some of our other partners on the general partnership side, that could be other folks that represent other types of interests. They are the general partners. They own a smaller portion of the deal. Does that make sense? And they own that portion of the deal because they are the ones bringing in the mortgage brokers, they're the ones bringing in the lawyers, they're the one bringing in the entire team, they're the one creating the business plan and implementing the business plan throughout the deal. I'll give you an example of a deal. So the View, we just sold that in November of last year. We bought it in April of 2021 with about 60-something investors on that particular deal. April of 2021, we bought it for $12.5 million. November 2022, 19 months later, we sold it for, April of 2020, 2021 and November 2023, sorry. So 2 years, about 19 months later, we sold it for $17.8 million, $5.3 million profit. And guess what? Now that profit is divided according to the proportion of everybody's investment. So the limited partners get their portion, the general partners get their portion, and everybody is pretty much excited. And on that particular deal, we were able to give everybody about a 1.5x equity multiple, the limited partners, and they walked away with about 30% average annual returns. So, and so for each property, there's an LLC that owns it. And that LLC is essentially, is fractionally owned by everybody that invested in it based on the operational agreement and the private placement memorandum. Make sense?
And
Makes a
just
lot
to
of
add,
sense. Oh, sorry.
and just to add, your current LLC can be a member as well, can be a limited partner. So you can use your current LLC to invest in any one of those deals. And your LLC is going to have ownership on the deal. Absolutely.
So you can invest with your LLC, you can invest with a trust, you can invest through your IRA, your 401k, or anything, or any of those types of instruments. But all of these things are the things that you're going to learn over the period of working with us at XSITE Capital and with us growing together. On the screen right now is the deal that we currently have available for investment for anyone who is interested. 101 Elwood, was actually, we actually did close on this deal already at the end of on December 30th of last year. And we are super excited about this one. We just have a few spots left on the deal. So for anyone who is interested, please reach out to us. I'm not going to obviously go into the details of the deal at this point because we don't have the time to do it. But please feel free to reach out to us. We'll let it kind of scroll through. It's a beautiful deal. We already seen a significant upside on it just since we took it over. And one of the great things about this particular deal is if you are still able to invest in it with us, you are actually going to be able to get significant depreciation that applies to your 2022 taxes. And that's the last year where you could accelerate depreciation by 100%. So anyone who invests, for example, $100,000 in this deal gets at least $41,000 in depreciation that they could apply to any of their passive income. And if by chance you're a real estate investor or a real estate professional rather, you could actually apply, or your spouse is a real estate professional, you could actually apply the passive investment, the passive depreciation to offset your active income. So your 1099 income, your W-2 income, and all those. But if all of this is kind of going over your head a little bit, please reach out to us. We'll be happy to, do a sit down with you for, as long as you need to, and educate you on the incredible tax benefits of investing in properties like this. And we certainly, if you are interested, we look forward to having you join the property ownership group of this one. There are a few spots left. We hope you can join us. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, if there are none, I will go ahead. I think we have almost everybody's emails. We'll definitely be able to send you a copy of this meetup. We know you could be anywhere else in the world, but you're here with us. We don't take that for granted. We really appreciate you. For those of you that on here, I see a lot of you are investors. Some of you are previous investors, current investors. Some are prospective investors. We look forward to continuing to grow with you, and we really, truly appreciate you. Thank you. Have a beautiful, wonderful night, and much love to all your family members. Thank you.